Hi, this is Chad Allen from Book Proposal Academy. Welcome back to this third of 4 videos. In the first video, I talked about how to come up with a great book concept. In the second video, I talked about why you should think about writing a book proposal and how to do it. If you haven't had a chance to watch those 2 videos, I strongly encourage you to go back and get caught up because they're going to be very helpful to you if you're thinking about writing a book. In this video, I want to take on this whole tug of war between traditional publishing and self-publishing. And the way I'd like to do that is to show you one of the training videos from the members area of Book Proposal Academy. It's going to take you through a process of understanding the pros and cons of traditional publishing, the pros and cons of self-publishing, and then help you decide which one should you pursue, or should you pursue one and then maybe the other one. I'm looking forward to bringing this screencast to you. Thank you from Book Proposal Academy.
All right, here we are in Module 1, Traditional Publishing versus Self-Publishing. This is one of the questions I receive most often. Should I pursue a traditional publisher or should I go the self-publishing route? So this training is going to help you understand the pros and cons of each option, and then I'll give you some tips for how to decide between one or the other based on your own situation. So let's jump into this. The pros of traditional publishing. Traditional publishers offer a host of services, and you know, when digital publishing arrived on the scene, a lot of people were predicting the end of traditional publishing. That hasn't happened yet. I suppose it could still happen. But I think one of the reasons traditional publishers have managed to survive is because they do offer value in the publishing process. Publishing companies employ people who do things like edit your book and design it and market it and publicize it and sell it. And those services do have value. So that's one pro of traditional publishing. Another is better distribution. It's going to be very difficult to compete with a traditional publisher if you're self-publishing. So traditional publishers have been around for a while. They've built networks and distribution channels over time, and that makes for better distribution in the vast majority of cases. Bestseller lists. If you want to hit a bestseller list, it's going to be hard to do that as a self-published author. The way you hit the bestseller list is by moving a lot of books through multiple reporting channels, usually within a small time frame, like a week to 2 weeks. There are some exceptions, where you get a bestseller on the list for weeks and weeks and months. But much more often, a book will hit the bestseller list because it's moving in a lot of volume through multiple reporting channels. And again, it's just hard to do that if you're self-publishing. Help along the way. Traditional publishers they employ people who have been doing this for a while, most of them. And so they're veterans at what they do, and they can help you as you navigate the publishing process. High quality book. We've all held a book in our hands and thought, wow, this just really feels good. And then we've also probably seen or held books that felt a little sketchy. With a traditional publisher, you're more likely to have a high quality book. I'm not saying it's impossible if you're self-publishing, but it's more likely if you're working with a traditional publisher. And advance and royalties. An advance against royalties is an amount of money that a publisher pays an author even before the author has completed the manuscript, and that's always nice. And then the royalties are a percentage of each sale of the book. You don't get paid royalties until your advance is paid off. That's why it's called an advance against royalties. But so obviously having an advance is a pro. Cons of traditional publishing. It can take up to a year between the first draft of your manuscript and publication. As someone who works in traditional publishing, I can tell you that is the ideal amount of time we have between the first draft of the complete manuscript and actually publishing the book. The reason for that is there is a developmental editing process that needs to happen, a copy editing process that needs to happen, proofing that needs to happen, shipping, and so on, and it just takes time. But another reason that it takes so long is because accounts like Barnes and Noble well, obviously Barnes and Noble is the big one, but also smaller independents as well as Amazon, they like to work really far in advance. They want to know what they can expect, what they're, what they want to be able to place those orders for those books months in advance. So that's why publishers have to work so far in advance. Another con of traditional publishing is that traditional publishing reduces the author's level of control over content, art, pricing, and so on. So, if a publisher is investing in your book project, they have a vested interest in the content, the art, etc. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to change your voice or change your content. In most cases, where it comes to play more is with the art, the packaging, the cover art, the interior layout design, and then pricing. If you're self-publishing, you can set your own price, but the publisher is going to want to set the price for your book because they want to make sure they recoup their investment. It can be difficult to get your rights back. Let's say you publish a book, you're several years in now, and your book has dropped in its sales level to, say, 200 or 300 copies a year. A lot of publishers, well, at least some publishers, will want to keep the rights to your book and continue selling even at that low velocity. So if you wanted to get the rights back and do something else with your book, if it's selling even at that low level, publishers may want to hold on to those rights and keep on recouping their investment. Large company equals bureaucracy. Anytime you work with a large institution, it can be difficult to navigate the various departments and people, so that would be a con of traditional publishing. And a smaller percentage of revenue goes to the author. We'll talk more about this later, but royalties can be anywhere from 10 to 20%, maybe a little more than that if you're traditionally publishing. If you're self-publishing, you're going to get 50% or more of the revenue from sales of your book. So there's a smaller percentage of revenue that goes to the author. Now I'll talk about that here in a bit when we get to the cons of self-publishing, because you need to understand the full picture. But what I'm saying here is that a smaller percentage of the revenue goes to the author. Pros of self-publishing. The publishing process can be very quick. I have friends who can show you how to self-publish to Kindle in a matter of 4 hours. It just doesn't take very long at all. The author has almost complete control over content, art, pricing. Digital publishing makes changes and corrections relatively simple. So if you're self-publishing to a Kindle and somebody points out a typo, it's pretty simple to upload a new file and get that correction taken care of quick. And a higher percentage of revenue goes to the author. So again, that kind of is in tension with the previous con of traditional publishing, because you can receive upwards of 50% of the revenue for when you self-publish, and it can actually be quite a bit higher than that. It can be closer to 70% of the revenue can go to the author. I think those are all the pros that I could think of for self-publishing. I do want to point out that with the item digital publishing makes changes and corrections relatively simple. That's true in traditional publishing as well. I mean, it's just as easy for a traditional publisher to upload a new file as it is for a self-published author. But the bureaucracy is what comes in there. Getting them to make that correction and change the file can take more time than it would take if you were self-publishing. So those are the pros of self-publishing. Cons of self-publishing: it can be lonely and difficult to figure out. If if you don't have a team of people as you do if you're in the traditional publishing world, it can be lonely. And if you haven't done self-publishing before, it isn't always intuitive. You're going to have to take some time to learn it, learn how to do it, or hire somebody who already knows how to do it. Either way, it can be lonely and difficult to figure out. Another con of self-publishing is that a greater percentage of revenue doesn't always mean more money, and that's an important point. Weaker distribution equals lower sales equals less revenue. So just because you're getting a higher percentage of the revenue doesn't mean that you're always going to see more revenue as a self-published author than you would as a traditionally published author. A little bit of a small thing is still just a little bit. So keep that in mind, that getting a higher percentage doesn't always mean more money in the end. It can mean that, but it doesn't always mean that. Difficult to hit bestseller list. Yeah, this is really difficult to do. In fact, when you hear about a self-published author hitting the bestseller list, it's usually because their book has done so well that a traditional publisher has gotten interested in it. They have purchased the rights to publish it, and then the book hits the bestseller list because of a publisher's ability to distribute it through a vast number of reporting channels. So very difficult to hit the bestseller list if you're self-publishing. High quality can be difficult to achieve. Not impossible. You can hire great people and get a high quality product, but it's more difficult when you're on your own in the self-publishing world. So how do you decide? And I like to point to people to two key questions. First, what are your goals for your book? Do you want to hit a bestseller list? Do you think that's a realistic expectation? If so, traditional publishing is probably the way you should go. Do you want to make an impact? Do you want to build your email list? These are good questions to have in mind. What are your goals for your book? And another goal obviously is to serve as many people as possible. So have in mind what your goals are, and then ask, how large is your platform? Because if you already have a large platform, then a traditional publisher can help you leverage that platform to reach more and more people, to give you a shot at the bestseller list and to have as big an impact as possible. If you don't have a large platform, and by large platform, I mean the point at which I raise my eyebrows when I'm looking at an author's platform is 10,000 email addresses. If you have 10,000 email addresses and they're legitimate email addresses, you haven't bought someone else's list, you've legitimately built a list of 10,000 email addresses over time, then that would be a large platform, and I would encourage you to at least talk with traditional publishers. If you don't have a large platform, then let's say you have a few hundred email addresses, then I would encourage you to think about self-publishing as a way to build your platform, as a way to pick up more email addresses. And then self-publishing can be a stepping stone to traditional publishing. That would be my advice about how to decide whether to go the self-publishing route or the traditional publishing route. So I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions about it, feel free to pop over into the discussion forum or the Facebook page, and I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you have. Thanks.
Well, I hope that screencast was helpful for you as you think about traditional publishing versus self-publishing. And now I have a question for you. Which way are you leaning? Are you thinking about self-publishing? Or are you thinking about traditional publishing? Or are you thinking about pursuing traditional publishing, and if that doesn't work out, going for the self-publishing option? I would love to hear which way you're leaning, what your own thought processes are about why you're leaning which direction you are. I'd be happy to interact with you in the comments. Be sure to hit the Facebook like button, and I'll talk with you in the 4th video about Book Proposal Academy. I'm going to tell you all the details and then invite you to enroll. Thanks.